last weekend I asked you if you could tell me how many levels existed after the 9 levels that take you to starting Vipassana. And you said 16. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Okay, well, I'll just briefly summarize, in the practice traditions, and they come from different sources. So, okay. Now, there's the samatha and the vipassana components. And so it's been recognized that there's different stages that a person goes through. Okay. So, first of all, in the samatha practice tradition, well, the Buddha basically described samatha in terms of 12 verses in the Anapanasati Sutta. And then about a millennium later, Kamalashila refined those descriptively, although still into 9 very short, compact stages, but they actually were delineated more clearly in terms of the stages of development. Okay, and then when a person has developed a sufficient degree of concentration, they could take up the jhanas or dhyanas from the suttas, of which there are, in most of the suttas, there's described as being 8, which are 4 jhanas with form, and then there are 4. They're really 4 further refinements of the 4th jhana, but they're sometimes referred to as the 4 formless jhanas. Okay? So that makes a total of 8. But in some places, the jhanas are described in terms of a sequence of 9 states. And the 9th state is the stage of cessation of perception and feeling, or vegna, meaning affective quality, and perception, meaning the process by which the mind conceptually identifies what it is observing. And this last one, the cessation, nirodha samapatti, is in the commentarial tradition said to be identical to the nirvana, parinirvana that's experienced when an enlightened being's body dies. So these are all the numbers that go along with the samatha tradition. Now, in the sutras, in terms of the path that includes the samatha tradition and concludes with awakening, the Buddha described this as being 7 stages of purification that he compared to a chariot relay. As a matter of fact, the sutra is called the chariot relay sutra. And these 7 are purification of virtue. Then there's purification of mind or consciousness, which essentially includes, as it has been interpreted, includes all the stages of samatha and the stages of the jhana. And then it commences to describe in detail the stages of the next 5 purifications. So the purification of virtue and purification of consciousness were the first 2 of those 7. So the next 5 are usually interpreted as specifically referring to the insights that lead to awakening. And so those are purification of view, followed by purification by overcoming doubt. The next one is called the purification by knowledge, what is and is not the path. And then this is followed by purification by knowledge and vision of the way. Then the final stage is called the purification by knowledge and vision, where the actual awakening occurs, and likewise reflection on the recognition of the fetters that have been overcome, and the ability to at will enter into the state of fruition consciousness called samapati, which is the experience of emptiness or nirvana, depending on how you like to describe it, same thing. So, from the sutras we have these 7 purifications, which encompass the 9 stages of samatha and the 9 jhanas. And in the latter stages, these are divided up, starting with the purification of view. These were likewise about a millennium later, not quite, maybe more like about 800 years later. There was a Theravadan commentarist named Buddhaghosa. As a matter of fact, most of modern Theravada is based on his commentaries. And he subdivided these last 5 knowledges, last 5 purification, into a series of knowledges, which, depending on how you read them, is roughly about 16. And in the modern tradition, Mahasi Sayadaw has very clearly defined those 16 knowledges that make up the sequence from purification of view through the purification, or through actually the fruition samapati and the reflection on the disappearance of the fetters. So that's how the whole thing fits together. Did I paint a clear picture? Did it make sense to you? Okay. And I could go through the knowledges one at a time, and I'd be happy to if you like. But let me just transpose this and see if we can do some cross-correlation with the later Mahayana descriptions. The 2 basic Mahayana descriptions, which don't really fit together very well, but often they get kind of squished together, as if they fit. And one is the 5 paths, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And the other is the Bodhisattva bhumis, which, depending on which source you go to, there's different numbers of, 8 or 10 or 12 or 16 or so forth. I think 10 is the most commonly observed breakdown of those bhumis. So, anyway, in terms of the 5 paths, there is the trying to. You can help me with. Hello. You can help me with the 5 path descriptions if you're, if you like. You probably are more familiar with them even than I am anyway. So, but anyway, where we find the development of vipassana is in the second of the 5 paths, and this is where the person would be doing analytical investigation of emptiness, and either at the same time or before or after, they would be following the 9 stages that were described by Kamalashila, or the development of samatha. So it is in the second path that it eventually culminates in the union of samatha and vipassana. Now, if we go back to the sutra system, according to the original sutras and the way they've been interpreted, the union of samatha and vipassana occurs in the purification of not by knowledge and vision of the way. So the practitioner already has samatha at this stage, has had profound insight into impermanence, emptiness, and suffering. And so it's actually in both the second path of the 5 paths and in the final stage of the purification by knowledge and vision of the way, both are exactly the same, that there comes about a union of shamata and vipassana, in which leads to the awakening. Now, which in the 7 purifications would be the initiation of purification by knowledge and vision, and of course, in the 5-path system corresponds to the path of seeing. Okay. Now, in the 7 purification system, this last purification repeats a number of times, typically 4, by which a person advances through 4 different stages or degrees of awakening: the screen entrer, once returner, non-returner, and arahat, or Buddha. And in the 5-path system, exactly the same process is taking place in Domlam, the path of habituation. So what happens is a person is continuing their advancement to greater and greater degrees of enlightenment. Buddhahood or arhatship corresponds in the 5-path system to the 5th path, which is called no more learning. So that's how these fit together. The bodhisattva bhumis are a little bit harder to, depending on whose system you follow, to integrate into those. But in some systems, they would say that the first bodhisattva bhumi corresponds to the path of seeing, which would correspond to the beginning of the purification by knowledge and vision of the way. And the moment of consciousness that occurs in would be called darsana marga or margapala, depending on whether you're following the Pali or the Sanskrit traditions. But as I say, there's some unclarity about how the bodhisattva bhumi system is applied, because in some views, the first stage of awakening, the stream entry, occurs at the 3rd bodhisattva bhumi, and the first 2 bodhisattva bhumis correspond to the events that in the 7 purifications that are called purification by knowledge and vision of the way. The 7th is purification by knowledge and vision, but knowledge and vision of the way. And this is where insights have been attained, but they have not yet matured into full awakening. So there is understanding, even at a more profound intuitive level, of impermanence and emptiness and suffering. But this has not led to the direct experience of nirvana or emptiness. So these are the different systems that, as a matter of fact, there's more than that, especially in the Mahayana, because each different school in each different country in each different period of time has made their own version of it. So, but that's more or less how all of these things fit together.